is back in theaters for its 10th anniversary. I'd never seen it, don't think I'd even heard any of the music before, so I figured it was time to check it out. I had a good time. I didn't catch the fever or anything, but I did enjoy some of the songs. Leslie Odom Jr. and Jonathan Groff were my favorite performances. Satisfied was probably my favorite song. But really what I was thinking about for most of the runtime was what makes a good stage-to-screen translation. Theater and film have strong similarities, but also strong differences, especially differences in presentation. So how do you wrangle those differences while still respecting both art forms? The main two differences I was thinking about during the runtime were cutting and camera placement. Theater, of course, no cutting. It is one long continuous performance, except for, intermissions if you count that. And sometimes films don't have cutting either, but, those are the exception, not the rule. Then observers see a play from a fixed point, like a lockdown camera. But in film, you can theoretically have the camera anywhere you want. And of course, if you combine these two qualities, then you get film grammar like a shot, reverse shot, jumping locations instantly, jumping time periods, all these things. In theater, you can see everything all the time. Your eyes can and should still be guided in theater, of course, but you can see everything. And in film, you are presented with something very specific. Both of these differences have their pluses and minuses, but they're different philosophies, and it's interesting to see how they come together and can be combined to highlight qualities in each other. Light spoilers ahead, maybe. I'm just going to point out some random things, observations throughout. Here's an example with both film qualities and theatrical qualities working well together. Angelica is giving that toast at the wedding, and we transition into introspection and flashbacks. On the stage, we have these supportive circling movements. People circling on the Lazy Susan. Pieces of the set are rotating out. We have the lights changing, settings changing. Then on the film side, we have the increasing pace of cutting, meshing with the movement and the swirling to create this disorienting feeling as we shift to an exploration of her internal state. It's using the elements of the stage production well, and it's using unique elements of film well, and it's combining to create something special with both mediums. Another one, this one's quick. This is right after Burr ominously implies that he might not keep his mouth shut about the cheating. On stage, we have the lighting, the hurricane pattern with Lin-Manuel Miranda right in the eye of it, which of course parallels what he's talking about. And with the advantage of filming, we can get this extra punch just a little bit by going from the more intimate, like medium close-up and cutting to a much wider shot. In this case, not just showing the centerpiece of the stage, but also emphasizing his isolation by going from this personal shot to a very distant one, which emphasizes the emptiness around him. Here's an example that starts to get a little bit blurry for me for the combination. We have this stage set up with great lighting that draws both similarities and differences, similar patterns on the floor below them with different colors behind them, plus the distinct lack of light between them creating like this great barrier, almost like a split screen. The sequence is absolutely presented like a film, where we get dedicated shots for each performer. Cut straight off for each performer before cutting back to a wide when they start harmonizing. We cut to this sort of off-angle thing for some reason, then back to full stage because Eliza enters the frame at the back, and that's information we need. I know I'm about to get like really low level here, but I just think it's interesting to consider these little things when doing this adaptation. There are a bunch of times in the film to me where it feels like it's kind of cutting on nothing in particular. Like this cut wasn't even in rhythm with the music or anything like that.
We'll make it right for you if we lay us.
And it doesn't feel like it adds any information. It seems odd to suddenly start favoring one of the two performers in the composition when it is kind of like about their similarities at this point. Here's another example of that cutting on nothing, quote unquote, again. I'm sure they had a good reason.
And if this child
I know the emotion is the important part of the cut. I have read In the Blink of an Eye. But again, nothing really changes here. This cut doesn't give us new information. Doesn't feel like an extension of the music. Here's another weird one where we're cutting to Burr's close-up as he's rotating out of focus on the Lazy Susan. I get it. He's singing. He's kind of the focus, at least of the music here. But he's also rotating kind of like out of focus and out of compositional prominence. So it's kind of like weird timing to cut to a close-up of him as he's kind of like right here. For contrast, this is like an example of a well-executed cut that could be to hide a performance thing or something like that. It's not a huge change, but the camera is resetting a little bit. This cut is synced up with the music well, so it feels natural, especially as the music cuts, to go to something like a little bit different, to reset a little bit. This film was cut together from 2 or 3 performances. I kind of thought the preamble to the film said 2, Wikipedia says 3, whatever. There are multiple options for performances here. Of course, we don't know what material the editor is working with, but it's likely that a lot of these little strange individual moments are due to cutting around some kind of performance issue, either acting or perhaps camera operation. I just wonder, and I'm not saying this like definitively, I wonder if it diminishes the play aspect a little bit. Like if we're trying to capture the magic of theater performance, like they said up front, then maybe we can live with some slightly suboptimal performances for a smoother, like more continuous experience. Because it feels to me like this should be something that balances the filmic stuff and the theatrical stuff. And of course, one of the theatrical things is the smoothness of the performance, like it being continuous. Not saying this makes the movie terrible, like this is a very small aspect. I obviously am talking about individual cuts in the scope of a movie. Individual cuts do not usually ruin anything. Some other aspects of the film seem almost aggressively filmy, not necessarily opposed to this. These are just a couple of things that kind of surprised me for a filmed production. There are a decent number of what I assume are Steadicam shots from actually on the stage. So here's an example. It's kind of on the stage, it's following them around a little bit very personally. Here's another example where we've got Burr and Lin-Manuel Miranda talking, and again, the camera's like center stage, just kind of following them around, does a pan between them. I actually kind of like the idea of that pan because it kind of feels like an exaggerated version of what the audience is experiencing, right? Like you have to rotate your head a little bit to track who's who. Obviously, this is much closer, so the effect is much stronger than when you're in the audience, but whatever. The idea is kind of fun, but I don't know, something about the camera being that close and personal feels very non-theater, but of course so is cutting, so I don't know where the line is. It just struck me as kind of an odd choice. And in a similar vein of surprises, we have the back shots, if you will. The first and the best use was George's introduction. There's something about that stage setup in front of him that has a lot of gravitas, and I don't know, kings can break the rules or whatever, I guess. So somehow it seems fitting for him, especially given how like a offbeat and quirky of a character he is. I'm on board with that one. But there are sporadic other times where they will sprinkle in just like a quick 1 or 2 second shot from that perspective from the back of the stage, just in the middle of other stuff. Fun idea. I guess to me, it just always feels weird to have that much of a shift from, again, the filmed production. Like that's the literal opposite perspective that you're usually getting. Now, I think the case for having these kinds of elements is pretty simple. Fans have probably already seen the production from a theatrical perspective. So having something like this with different angles and a very different visual experience, more personal camera, putting you right on the stage at points. This could freshen up the experience and make it feel like something new and exciting, and perhaps something that you want to see multiple times in and of itself as a separate experience from the theater. So maybe I'm just undervaluing that. Maybe that is more of the goal than I'm giving it credit for. These are all just kind of like movie philosophy ramblings. Like I just think the concept is very interesting for how it can be done well and what the goal could be. So even though I've got my musings and reservations about the way the production is captured, I do like the way the stage production is done. I've talked about the Lazy Susan a couple times already. I don't know how common it is to have something like that, like a mobile stage floor. I think it's very well utilized in a lot of spots. Not always. Sometimes it feels kind of awkward, but this was probably my favorite individual usage. I love how it's used to passively change the focus and kind of go from the piano playing back to Hamilton. Here it's used to make Angelica seem like she's drifting away, right? Like giving her motion even though she's static, like it's out of her control. And then there's the opposite, making motion seem static, kind of keeping that lady near Hamilton for a longer period of time, make it feel like something that's lingering on his mind. There's fun blocking and choreography too. My single favorite is probably this scene with the redcoats holding down the fort around Hamilton. I think that's great. A lot of good moments like that. So in summary, I think it's a thought-provoking watch. I love when you can get something to think about from a film, and I got plenty to think about from this, and a lot of semi-coherent rambling, I hope. I would imagine I would have liked the plain stage production a little bit more, which kind of feels shocking to me because usually I'm not much of a theater person. But yeah, I love a little movie philosophizing, and this hit the spot for me.